All right, well, let's hop into our first topics, but now the real stuff, no more gags.
Oh, my God.
FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. There is no doubt about it, and if you want to get in on the playoff action with FanDuel, you can still because it is America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed just by placing a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets. Win or lose, the app is easy to use, and there are so many different ways to bet, including live same-game parlays. You can find bets in the new Explorer tab. You can make a parlay in the Parlay Hub, which is the best way to find popular parlays and much, much more. So visit FanDuel.com/UCSS to make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, an official partner of the NFL. We're starting with the Dustin Hopkins situation, though. You guys alluded to it a second ago, but on a scale of 1 to 10, it's a 2.5-point spread according to FanDuel. The starting kicker for the Browns may be out. How much of a concern is that to you guys, Bull? You want to start?
On a scale of 1 to 10,
You said you wanted one.
I mean, it's a pretty big deal. This is an 8 on the concern level.
I'm with you. I think it is too. People are kind of brushing this off. They were yesterday in the newsroom. They're like, hey, we got another kicker. It's not like we don't have another
kicker?
We don't have that kicker.
Now, the only thing is, we don't know. Maybe Riley Patterson in the big spot will come through. Maybe he will. But with
someone
Dustin
told me yesterday he's 3 for 3 with playoff kicks.
Right.
That is accurate.
With
Okay.
Jacksonville.
Yeah, we like that. I mean,
but here's the thing. Think about Kevin Stefanski, guys. We know Kevin Stefanski is an extremely aggressive coach. He likes to go for it on 4th down. He likes to blow off punts. He's very ultra aggressive, right? We'd agree on that?
yeah.
Well, there were times this year where, and part of the reason he's a factor in that aggressiveness, obviously there's a lot of factors, but one of the factors in his aggressiveness is, until this year, the Browns have had crappy kickers
Yep.
that he didn't trust.
So you're more likely to go for it.
Right. Yeah. Now, if he grew to trust Dustin Hopkins, you don't develop that trust in 1 week.
Sure.
You develop it over time. By the late of the year, he completely trusted Dustin Hopkins to the point where he'd let him attempt almost any kick, right?
Yeah.
Close to 60 yards.
Yeah.
I think he made a 58-yard or 59-yard or something like that.
58 against Indy.
How long was it?
58
He had
against
3
Indy.
over
58 yards.
50 at Indy.
Okay.
Like,
Now think about where you're playing. You're playing in Houston. It's climate controlled,
Yep.
right? That's a stadium where, hey, it's halftime. I could try a 59-yard field goal. If he has Dustin Hopkins, he's going to try that 59-yard
he
field
will.
goal.
Yeah.
With this guy, there's no chance he's going to do that.
Nope.
I mean, you may be in a situation where you have no choice but to try, but if there's an option,
That's
he's
game
going to
ending.
take the other
At the
option.
end of the half, no, because you don't want to risk a return.
Right.
That, when you're kicking from that distance, that's a returnable kick.
And so ultimately, yes, that could make a difference. Now, if Riley Patterson makes his kicks, it's fine. But just going into the game, and maybe ultimately it helps the Browns to be more aggressive in this game. We won't know until the game is played. But to at least a small degree, this change at kicker not only affects the confidence we have in the Browns kicking game, but it will, at least to a small degree, potentially change how Kevin Stefanski coaches this game.
I would agree with that. Can we put Riley Patterson's stats up again? That said that those were his 2023 stats.
Yes, that's correct.
He kicked that many extra points?
Detroit scored a lot of points.
He was playing for the Lions for most of the year.
When I'm looking at that, why was he cut?
So here's what happened.
Yeah, Bull, explain it.
So,
Hell, the guy's just as good as our guy.
right. Now, he didn't attempt a lot of field goals. Our guy, extra points and field goals, big difference.
Because they were scoring touchdowns.
How many field goals did he attempt? Over 50 yards, Mike.
Let me pull up one sec.
So here's what happened. I read this. So the Lions, for the last 6 weeks that he was kicking for them,
Yeah.
in practice, they would have a competition because they had I can't think of who the kicker was.
A kicker on their practice squad.
They had a kicker on their practice squad,
Right.
another
Michael
veteran
Badgley.
guy. I can't think of his name.
Michael Badgley.
Michael Badgley, who used to be on the Chargers, right? So for the last 6 weeks, this is according to their coaching staff, the last 6 weeks that Riley Patterson was there, in practice, Badgley was consistently out-kicking him in practice. And eventually, even though he didn't really do anything to lose the job because he didn't miss a lot of kicks,
No.
eventually they felt like, knowing they were going to playoffs, that they trusted Badgley
Wow, what a gutsy
more than
move.
Patterson.
I mean, that's almost unprecedented.
Right, it wasn't like he was...
You released a kicker who's got Pro Bowl stats.
Well, I mean,
what's wrong with that? Put the stat line up
it's just
again.
not enough field goals.
He's missed, out of 68 kicks, he's missed 5.
Yeah, but you can't.
Show our stats. I know the long ones make a difference.
Together. Yeah.
I know the long ones make a difference, but if you put the stats side by side, now you say we tried a lot fewer field goals.
Yeah.
Because Detroit scores touchdowns.
I know, but
I think
real quick, an extra point is a gimme.
It is, but I mean, he was 16 of 18. It's not like the guy was missing one kick after another.
He was only 1 for 2 on kicks over 50.
So they obviously didn't trust him on 50-yard field goals.
You know what? It's one of those moves that if you're a Lions fan, you better hope you don't lose a playoff game on a late kick, because that's a question mark to me. I just don't know. Usually there's glaring evidence to cut a kicker. We had it. We saw it in real time.
It seems clear they didn't trust him to make 50-yard kicks.
Look, they have more input than we do, or intel. They see him every day in practice.
If we watched every single kick from him for the Lions, we just went on YouTube and it was like, here's his kicks. And you watch his kicks, you'd be like, oh, okay, I saw you make them. Put him in the game.
That's what you're supposed to do.
Our guy went what for over 50 yards, Mike.
Dustin Hopkins is 8 for 8.
He didn't miss.
He's 8 for 8. That guy's 1 for 2. Most kickers are going to make kicks under 50 yards.
Look,
prior to us getting
I only really care.
Prior to us getting
I hear you, but
he wasn't making 50 yards either.
We could talk ourselves into anything.
He was 50%.
Do you trust Riley Patterson as much as you trust?
You know what? After seeing those stats, I trust him more now than I did. Perfectly honesty, in all transparency. Typically, when a kicker is picked up off the junk heap, there's a reason he was there. I don't know that I can ever remember an instance where a kicker was cut mid-season without missing a plethora of kicks. We've seen it a million times.
Yeah, I hear you.
Guys get, in the rut where they just can't make. By talking about kickers, the Dallas kicker who hadn't missed a kick in his career missed 2 in his last game.
Sounds like what happened to them
Hope they don't
2
cut
years
him.
ago.
This is like playing blackjack at the casino. Listen, you just got to hope for that if you play the optimum strategy, that they'll hit a certain amount of field goals. For me, it may change your strategy. But it's one of those things where if you're a coach, you go to your offense, and this is the good thing about having veterans, right? You go to Flacco and say, all right, listen, we got a kicker we don't know much about. Here's what we want to do. In certain downs and distance, we're going to be more aggressive. There's going to be times where I'm going to call a third down play, and that third down play is going to be put in so that we could get a certain amount of yards, maybe 4 or 5 yards, so we could go for it on 4th down.
Right.
And the kicker's going to be auditioning in real time in the game. So the confidence meter isn't about what he did before. It's the confidence meter what he did today.
Yeah.
So if he misses a chip shot.
Well, he's missed already.
Well, he did miss, but he bounced back very well in that game after his first miss.
If he misses a chip shot, then I might have to be like, okay, we might be going forward on short yardage.
It definitely changes Kevin Stefanski's mindset. To Bull's point, there's certain times you're going to go for it if you don't feel your kicker has the leg, and there's certain times you're going to kick if you feel that your kicker's going to be good from inside of 58 yards.
And generally speaking, I'm for the way my playoff mindset works. I'm for more aggressive. When you're playing against these teams, everybody has a quarterback.
Right.
All of them.
Yeah.
So if you're up 14 points, you're up 10 points, that ain't no big lead. You got to be aggressive.
Yeah.
You got to finish games.
And G, wouldn't you agree it's easier to be aggressive with the defense that Kevin Stefanski has?
Yep.
I'm okay going with it.
Yep.
Typically, I am a field position guy, typically.
Yeah,
but there's so many things that you can't just say, you're at the 43, you got to go for it. You have to go, got to go. No, there's so many factors. What kind of game is it? What kind of game do you expect it to be? Is it going to be a low-scoring game where 3 points will win it or lose it?
Right.
So all of that factors in. It drives me nuts when Troy Aikman on Monday Night Football constantly says, the ESPN analytics say you've got to go for it. What the analytics don't tell you are the things we just mentioned. Mm-hmm. It's got to be analytic and situational driven. And when you marry those, and by the way, I think Kevin Stefanski does as good a job at that as anybody. He does a really good job of marrying the situation with the analytics, and I love the way he uses all of that. But I do expect him, to your point, to be aggressive in this game. Got to be aggressive. And, this is a game where I much prefer guys get out to a quick start and put teams behind the 8 ball, right. 17, 20 points.
because then it changes the way they think about the game too. So I'm all for being more aggressive.
Listen, Riley Patterson, you know how many field goal attempts he has of more than 39 yards this season?
No.
4.
I can't, but maybe situationally they just weren't set up to kick a lot.
They didn't trust him. I mean, that seems
They
pretty
clearly
obvious.
didn't. They cut him. I mean, they didn't trust him, and they've cut him.
3 of 4. He went 3 for 4 on kicks over 39 yards. Dustin Hopkins is 22 of 25 in kicks over 39 yards. I mean, there's no way there's no apples to apples here because he made a bunch of extra points.
What were the touchdowns for each team? Detroit scored a lot more touchdowns. I would guess double-digit more touchdowns than we did.
I'll look into that, but I was looking at his numbers from Jacksonville last year. He was Jacksonville's
How was he
full-time
there?
kicker, and he kicked in Detroit first, by the way, for 7
And
games.
then Jacksonville.
Then Jacksonville back.
And when he's been in Detroit, he's never been the kicker.
By the way, there's no easier place to kick than Detroit.
Yeah.
His numbers in Jacksonville, and the only reason I look at this is I was like, oh, he must have a bad year, and they moved on because he was 30 for 35 and 36 at 37 from extra points in Jacksonville. So
you
it's
keep
not like
bringing
he
up
even
the
had a
extra
bad
points
season
as
in
if
Jacksonville.
that's
what about field goals?
Everybody's
And what about long
35 and
kicks?
36.
Say it again, Bull.
Everybody, you keep bringing. Who cares
Extra
about the
points
extra
are
points?
really-
Everybody
I was
makes
just
their
saying, he
extra
only
points.
missed. Yeah, it's not like he had.
Whoa! What
were
you
his
mean?
field
Everybody
goal
make
stats?
extra points.
Yeah, not everybody. What were his field goal stats, and what was his range in Jacksonville?
In Jacksonville, he was 8 of 8 within 30, 10 of 11 from 30 to 39, 10 of 13 from 40 to 49, of 2 and 3 for 50. 53 is his longest kick.
That's not bad.
Which is why
If
I
you're
was surprised.
67% from, I know it's a very small sample size, but
Which is why I was surprised Jacksonville was just okay moving on.
yeah, there must
seems
be
like this is
something.
now-
There
He
must be
doesn't
something going on
it's
there.
It's clear he doesn't have a good long leg. Detroit never let him kick kickoffs. They had their punter doing kickoffs.
Probably because he couldn't reach the goal line.
He doesn't have a long leg, and you're not trying 50-yard field goals with this
Well,
guy.
we're going to have to.
choice.
He's going to have to do kickoffs for us.
Right,
So
he did. He has.
that might be a factor in the game.
and he did it for Jacksonville too.
How many
he
times
didn't for
did he reach
Detroit.
the end zone during his kickoffs? How many were touchbacks?
All I know is I don't trust this guy over 50. Certainly not over 50
I
yards.
trust him a lot more than I did before I knew those numbers. I didn't look back.
but
and
you
see
can't
what his
trust him
numbers
over
were.
50. Because,
I don't.
Yeah.
I don't.
And
but
that's
I trust,
where it matters.
But 42-yard field goal. I'm not going to be Cade York edge of my seat. What were the percentage of his kickoffs that went for touchbacks? Do we know that?
I got to go. That's in a whole different
Okay.
stat.
Well,
I'll find it for you by the end of the show.
Yeah.
I-
The evidence is pointing towards the fact that he doesn't have a big leg on kickoff.
Yeah.
Probably doesn't have on field goals either.
He's a serviceable guy. We're going to depend on him.
Hopefully.
To do
I mean,
his
hell,
job.
I know that Houston didn't have C.J. Stroud, but we beat Houston at Houston without a kicker.
Hey man, we've been playing with backups.
Literally no kicker.
We've been
That's-
playing.
punter.
That's a
Yeah.
pretty big.
Well, I know C.J.
difference.
Stroud
Yeah.
wasn't there, but
We've been playing with backups all year. There's another backup plan. Get your job done.
Well, gee, that's a great segue to our next topic.